Guten Morgen. First and foremost, let me say Happy Emancipation Day. And I don't have a problem with Emancipation Day. What I have a problem with is that every time our folks get a holiday, it's always about celebrating our sorrows. It is always about celebrating our enslavement. It is always about emotionalizing and feeling sorry for ourselves, like we were the only ones that were ever enslaved. But let me tell you something. Let me break some really good news to you that you have a lot more to celebrate than just your enslavement and emotionalizing. That you too enslaved the white man at one time, and that every other race on the planet has been enslaved at some point or the other. So it is not unique. We should not wear our enslavement as some badge of honor. Instead, we should celebrate the successes, the victories, the triumph, in spite of all that was dished out to us, that we should celebrate our successes. We should celebrate our victory and all the things that we have achieved, despite what we have been through. Now, I know this is the emotional games the white liberal of the world and the globalists play. They always wants to overemphasize, always wants us to remember our enslavement. They don't want to remember their enslavement. I don't see the white man going around talking about his enslavement in Africa. Go read about the Barbary pirates who raided the British Isles, took all their women and children, and had them as concubines and slaves in North Africa. I don't see the white man going around celebrating and crying and emotionalizing or preparing a day for his enslavement. As a matter of fact, the word slave come from Slavs. Okay? The Germanic European enslaved the Slavs. I don't see the Slavs going around crying and moaning about their enslavement at the hands of the Germanic people. No. As a matter of fact, the Germanic people, some of them enslaved each other. I don't see them going around moaning and crying and emotionalizing and waiting at some badge of honor about their enslavement. The Persians and the Greeks had wars and enslaved each other. I don't see them going around dedicating some day promoting that enslavement or memorializing that enslavement. The point I'm making is that you should celebrate your triumphs. But for some reason, the politicians that be like us to remember this day as some sort of emotionalizing, some sort of crying, and oh my God, look what they did to us. That should not be the emphasis. Emphasis should be a day of triumph, a day of victory, a day of no matter what you've been through, you are here, and your sons and your daughters are doing great things. And you should march into the future holding that as an example to let you know that you can conquer and you can be and you can triumph over every obstacle placed in your way. That is what you should celebrate. Not all this crying and only moaning. And man, you should be marching in synchrony, marching up to Manquaca and lighting some big torch of some flame and giving homage to men like Julian Feder. Or you should be in the market square, okay, lighting some flame for the souls that perished after the British triumphed and retook the island from Julian Feder and his rebels. This is real celebration. Not this nonsensical whining and dancing. Please. You should be lighting some sort of candle, some sort of torch for the men who sacrificed their lives against the British and paid the ultimate price and were slaughtered in the same market square. This is what you should be teaching your kids about. Let them understand what struggle, true struggle means. That some people in this world are willing to lay down their life for the price of victory, for the price of rebellion, for the price of freedom, instead of putting on some mumbo-jumbo costumes and whining in front of the goddamn parliament. Not all this emotionalizing, which is mostly a construct of the white liberal globalists. This is what he installs in you. And of course, these liberal politicians, these center-left politicians, that is what they like. They like you to be emotional. They like you to not think straight. They like you to always see the negative in things. They don't want you to see the positive. They don't want to see the victories. They want you to wallow and be in misery and be sorrowful. This is what they like, because that's how they get you into a trance, and that's how they get to control you, both domestically, locally, and internationally. That is the plan, and I want you to see through that plan. I want you to stop feeling sorry for yourselves and realize that your slavery is no badge of honor. Stop wearing it as a badge of honor. But your victories, that should be the badge of honor. I want to hear more about Julian Fedor, who triumphed against the British, who cornered them in St. George's, okay? Who took captive their generals and their governor and their lieutenants and brought them up to Mount Quaqua. That's who I want to hear about. And to this day, they do not know what happened to Julian Fedor. They can't find him, okay? He outmaneuvered the British. That's what I want to hear about. This is the example you need. This is what you need to reiterate. This is what you need to accentuate. True, strict discipline, order, structure, so that your youth, and the young men and women, would not be deceived by worldwide white liberal globalists. How are you going to have true liberation when your young men are actively trying to kill each other? What sort of liberation is that? Huh? And there is no one in the society, okay, who's supposed to show some sort of leadership to get these young men to deviate from that path of destruction. What sort of leadership is that? Who remains mute and silent on issues like that? You guys, in some respects, are no different from Vincent and Latremont, who conquered Pompeii, a runaway slave who started a maroon revolt in St. Andrews, okay? And thanks to Augustine Martin and these guys for exposing that stuff. Thank you for liberating knowledge. So don't be a Vincent and a Latremont. Be a Pompey. Truly liberate yourselves. And now more and more that liberation comes through mental liberation, because there's so much coming at you to enslave you mentally. Once they capture headquarters, they capture everything. That is what they're after. They're after your youth, the strongest part of your population. And then you have a lame adult population that is sitting by. You have a lame Christian church that has sold its soul in Grenada. Sold its soul. And you know it sold its soul because it's so quiet. On the issues you would think that it should be vocal, it's quiet. It's quiet. So, it's obvious. They have sold their soul to the world of mammon. So in some respects, you guys are like modern day Vincent and Latremont. You guys are like them. Who back then, what did they do? They went and they captured Pompey when he was a runaway slave. And they were rewarded for capturing him. They were rewarded with their own freedom. So I don't want you guys to be deceived, my dear Grenadian people. I want you to understand that that same system of reward and punishment that the white enslavers installed back then is alive and well. But it's more sophisticated. It's through economic means. So they economically reward the ones who sell you out and the ones who facilitate you being sold out. They reward them financially. You have to understand this. All these big NGOs and all these big worldwide corporations and these worldwide and white globalists, they know how to reward these politicians who sell you out. And this is wholesale. This is not a little sale. You know, this is not 10 or 20 or 50 people. Imagine this is where the money is at. When you sell out a whole nation. When you sell out a whole nation and the youth population of that nation, you're talking, Grenada is a pretty young population. Well, we have a 60-40 split or something like that. So you're talking about over close to 60,000. When you're able to sell that out, that's big money. So you think these white globalists don't know how to reward politicians throughout Grenada and the Caribbean that sell you out? They know. They know how to reward them. It's part of the package deal. So that's why I tell you, the system has not changed. The machinations have not changed. The Vincent Latremont machination has not changed. Sell out your people, okay? And guess what? We will reward you with your freedom. And the freedom in this case is economic rewards. That's it. That's what it is. I want you to see through this for what it is. Back in the days, they'll look for leadership in the little village. And they'll come and they'll go to that leadership. And they'll conquer the village. But that's a few people. But no, they have upscaled their model. So the leadership is the leadership of the society. The people have the real power in the society. So that is who they go to. That is who they negotiate with to sell you. It's like a slave market. Very sophisticated slave market. And then you telling me now about emancipation? Is that emancipation? When globalist demons are able to come negotiate with your politicians, okay, to sell your souls to them. Is that emancipation? Well, I must be stupid. It's fool's gold. It is fake. It's an imagination. It's an illusion of you being emancipated. How could you be emancipated when your policies does not emanate from you? Your policies is not designed, does not originate, is not tailored to your society and to the thinking and to the needs and to the aspirations of your own people, but instead is imposed upon you by external forces. How could you think in your right mind that you're emancipated? It's not a mystery that the British did what they did when they left Grenada and set up, the Westminster model government system or constitutional monarchy system. It's not a coincidence, because they knew that there's so much power in the prime ministry and the administration based on the system, that there's so much power there. There's hardly any check and balance in the system. So they know that even if they left Grenada and they give you so-called independence, guess what? All they'll have to do if they want control of the whole nation is to bribe the leadership. Once they got the leadership, which has pretty much unchecked power, then they have control of the society. So it's not an accident they didn't leave these checks and balances in place. Proper checks and balances. It's not an accident. That was part of the plan. These white globalists, they know. They understand the system. These people, I tell you already, you guys are not even in these people's league. These fly-by-night politicians are not even in their league. These are people who have decades and centuries of ruling over other human beings. When you think about it, the Brits ruled over 400 million people on the planet. Now, you don't do that without cunning and great skill. And with all this technological improvement right now, then it was pen and paper and keeping track of this stuff. Now you have satellites. Now you have computer databases where they can track every single thing. So could you imagine how sophisticated they've gotten? While your kids starting to whine and joke and jam behind one another. Huh? And then you have people touting themselves and what? Oh, they're like Morris Bishop. and they're so smart. These people are pretty smart. The white people, all they got to look to, these are the ones that they like to capture first. The ones who claim that they're some sort of revolutionary thinkers. These are the ones they capture, because they know once they capture them, it's over. So I've got to tell you, I believe that the current Prime Minister of Grenada and the current Prime Minister of Barbados are pretty shrewd in terms of self-serving shrewd, in terms of being able to know how to use the machinations of government for self-aggrandizement. Okay? You see, I'll tell you why they're smart. Current Prime Minister of Grenada and the current Prime Minister of Barbados. And that's why you see they have a dynamic duo. They're taking cues from one another. I'll tell you why they're smart. Because what they realize that politics itself There's only so much you can get while you're in politics. And when you're in, you're in. When you're out, you're out. Again, it's the other person's turn or the other group's turn. So what they're doing is that they're ensuring that they secure themselves post-politics. And I've said this before about especially, the Bajan Prime Minister. Very shrewd, because they understand the lifeline of politics is relatively short. Even if you have 3 terms, that's only 15 years. So post-politics, you have to have a life. So they will make all these amazing connections during their political career, because they know at the end of their political career, they will have these connections, these NGOs worldwide, these organizations worldwide, United Nations and whatever, and they can get some grand job in one of these organizations. Or because of the connections, they can continue in some sort of NGO capacity or some sort of organizational capacity to pretend to represent the interests of their nations. And they can be handsomely paid to do that. And when these outside external forces need an inside source to infiltrate the society, they've got a friend in these what would be then former politicians. This is how it works. And they're going to hate a guy like me for educating you, for liberating, truly emancipating your mind. They're going to hate me. But I am the one who truly and genuinely loves you. Instead of truly fighting, instead of truly struggling for the emancipation of your people, what do? But instead, you allow NGOs to influence the direction of your society, to come into your society and tell you what to do with your young women, the flowers, the true flowers of your nation, the potential mothers of your nation. This is what you allow. You facilitate it. You talk about liberation? You talk about emancipation? How are you emancipated when you allow globalist demons to tell you what to do? It doesn't, I mean, it would have been fine if it emanated from you, but it doesn't. It emanates from people who were your enslavers, who don't care about you, and they're sneakily telling you what to do, and you accept it, and you go along with it. And you're talking about emancipation? You proposing emancipation? You gotta be kidding me. Stop all this darn crying for yourselves, because every race on the planet has been a slave at some point or the other to other races. I don't see the white man crying and wallowing in his slavery. Why doesn't he talk about his slavery? But he's always eager to remind you of your slavery. So, Emancipation Day should not be a day to mourn, but it should be a day to be joyful, a day to be triumphant, a day to recognize your iron will, your deep strength and character and courage, and what you are made of, that you can triumph over every other human being, that you can triumph, and that you can be as strong as every other race on the planet. As a matter of fact, if you want to talk about slavery, you were the first enslavers. You enslaved them. Look at Egypt. And I'm not talking about Arabized Egypt. I'm talking about real Egypt, where black men rule and triumph, rule the world. How about that? This is what you should celebrate when you had everybody else in slavery. Oh, I know they will deceive you and make you think that modern day Egypt is the Egypt that built all the great pyramids and built all these great structures. This is the true knowledge. This is what you're capable of when you unite, when you come together, when you speak with one voice, when you act in unity, and you're not deluded by these fly-by-night politicians who deceive you for their own benefit, not because they want you to triumph, not because they want to uplift their nation, but because they want to maintain power and they want to have you in subjugation. First and foremost, every liberation begins in the mind. Without liberation in the mind, there will be no liberation. Liberation means a mass of people who are collectively strong. Liberation means a mass of people who can construct and build their environment to their benefit. Liberation means a mass of people who can construct great structures and build their environment to the benefit of their people. How are you going to be liberated when you cannot even build a goddamn retaining wall to ensure the smooth traffic of people through the closure area? What liberation is that? How can you celebrate emancipation? How can you celebrate liberation when you cannot build simple structures? That is the ultimate mark of liberation. Okay? Just like the Sphinx and the pyramids were ultimate marks of liberation, of triumph, of victory. How are you going to be liberated when you're going back and begging and crawling at the feet of those who sold you out to your enslavers? That's not liberation. That is mental oppression. That is mental slavery. How are you going to be liberated when you adopt, swallow, and drink the Kool-Aid from worldwide white liberal globalists that determine your society, that is trying to structure your society for you, and you're blinded and you can't even see it? How are you going to put your sons and daughters, their lives, their mentality in the hands of white globalists who are responsible for your demise, for your destruction, and yet still you look to them for doctrine of how you should run your society? You look to them. You adopt wholeheartedly. They're telling you what to do with your young kids, and you call that liberation? You cannot be liberated. You're enslaved. True liberation is the ability to be humble, to listen to the wisdom of elders, to listen to the wisdom of people who came before you, not arrogance. Okay? That is not liberation. So, liberation is not fanfare. Liberation is not dressed in costumes and running around and jumping and singing and dancing. That's not liberation. Liberation is when, through your hands, you're able to stick together, to come together, and truly determine your destiny that will uplift every single human being in your society. That, my friends, is true liberation. Liberation is when people are able to express their opinions. People are able to challenge what you say, and you should be able to discuss with them and show them the merit in what you're doing. But instead, you silence their voices. That is not liberation, my friend. Liberation is when you welcome truth and you welcome discussion and you welcome bold and brave and new ideas. It's not liberation when you try to silence people's voices. That's not liberation. That is tyranny. That is the very tactics of intimidation that our enslavers used. And now you have cunningly transformed those tactics into economic intimidation. True liberation, my friends, is when you're willing and you're open to discussion, when people can voice their opinions and you can prove to them why you're right, and you're willing to accept their ideas even if they disagree with you. That is the mark of true liberation. So happy Emancipation Day. I hope each and every one truly understands what it means to be emancipated. Okay? Not just from the white man, but from the very people who are supposed to be doing what is right for us. We should never change one enslavement for another type of enslavement.
Total Fix Auto, Grenadian, West Indian, professional mechanics, operating on any and every kind of vehicle, trucks, cars, foreign, diesel. We do complete auto repair, welding, air conditioning, exhaust, anything you could think about, from bumper to bumper. We do it here, and we are well trained. We are specialized. We do also auto inspection. Once the car is, we can prepare it to get it ready, and if it's ready, we do the inspections. We do the drive cycle. We do diagnosing. A lot of people cannot find the problems with the vehicles. We do all of that at 1150 East 92nd Street in Brooklyn, right between Flatlands and Conklin, 11207. Complete service. Thank you.
So there you have it, guys. Total Fix. Total Fix. All right? Right across Yankanasi. Easily accessible. This is the man in charge. Okay? Mr. Puma, as you just heard, tells you exactly what you can have done at this site. So, Mr. Fumo, remind them again.
Oh yes, 1150 East 92nd Street in Brooklyn, between Flatlands and Conklin.
You got it, guys. Check it out. Total Fix.